So hello everyone, we are happy to be with you today for a great interview with two prominent guests on outer space governance. So I'm joined today by Minister Al Amiri from the United Arab Emirates. Good morning, Minister.
Good morning.
And I'm also joined by Justin Vaïsse, founder and Director General of the Paris Peace Forum.
Hi, Jérôme.
Hi, Justin. So to give you a few brief introduction about the biography of both intervenants. So Minister Al Amiri, you are the UAE Minister for Public Education, Advanced Technologies and Chairwoman of the UAE Space Agencies. As such, you're responsible to oversee the agency's mandate of guiding the space sector, ensuring its contribution to the national economy and to the UAE's sustainable development. You are also the chairwoman of the Emirates Scientists Council, and among many other prominent responsibilities, let me just mention your role in the Emirates Mars mission, Hope, at the Mohammed bin Rashid Space Center. Justin, on your end, you're founder and Director General of the Paris Peace Forum. Justin was before that position the head of policy planning at the French Ministry for Europe and Foreign Affairs. Before that, you served as Director of Research at the Brookings Institution in Washington, with a particular focus on transatlantic relations and European foreign policy. As a historian specialized in international relations and American foreign policy, you published and wrote several books translated in multiple languages. So I wanted to know what was the original inspiration for the UAE to make space exploration a priority, and what is the next for the UAE in terms of outer space governance and market?
So thank you so much for the introduction. It's a pleasure being here with you today. The UAE advented into the space sector with the primary purpose of developing technological capabilities and development capabilities for the country. It is no secret that ensuring sustained growth of any economy and therefore sustainably ensuring the development of our economy, technology is at its core, and space is almost always a key driver for technological capability and capacity within any nation. So that's why we started the space sector well over 2 decades ago as a country. We made the active decision of transforming from a country that utilizes space technologies to a country that develops space technologies and uses it as an active contributor to its economy in the current phase of development. We started the step-up game, so from a very small program to develop capabilities and to develop capacity for Earth observation satellites to start working with the world in terms of scientific achievements and moving to exploration programs. And that was a very concerted decision by the UAE space sector to start development in its exploration program. The Emirates Mars mission then became our sole focus for 7 years. We achieved it with great success. It is today providing very vital scientific data to the science community at large, but that's not where we stopped. Today, we do have an upcoming, again, even larger space exploration mission that's headed to the asteroid belt, due for launch in 2028. But in parallel with that, a lot of the contracts, and we're targeting about 50% of the contracts to be given to the private sector in the UAE. And what that really means is that we're developing a new economic cluster around space that is fostering this new catalyst of development across the country.
That's really interesting. Allow me to react, Jérôme. That's really interesting because actually there are big spacefaring nations that do not have a new space economy, and I'm thinking of Russia, for example. Russia is very present in space, but it's all about government assets and especially, obviously, or almost exclusively military assets. Whereas a few others, like the US, China, and as you mentioned, the UAE, as well as Europe, of course, are now sort of fully oriented to a private space economy, which sort of breathes new life, but also poses new problems.
Indeed, I was actually going to react. What I take out of your first answer, Mr. Al Amiri, is that space technology truly can empower nations to actually develop their own economy and single development. And this is also why it's so important to become an actor and not just a user. And I think it connects just with the call for solutions for the forum this year, if I remember correctly, that the entry for outer space is dedicated to that role of space technologies to empower development, which connects with the larger priority you have with North development.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've been pretty much along the lines that you mentioned. We have been really working on making sure that space technologies advance the development goals, obviously, but also making sure that we preserve space as a common. and especially tackling that issue of debris and more generally space traffic.
Well, thank you. It's actually a great transition. So I will turn back to Minister Al Amiri with a second question. With the Net Zero Space Initiative, here the forum is especially active on the matter of space sustainability, sustainability in orbit and not just on Earth, which is a prerequisite, of course, for equitable access to outer space. So I was wondering, what are the UAE's position on space sustainability? First of all, as the growing number of satellites in orbit, but also the congestion and the risk of debris is threatening more and more assets in orbit and the capacity of more and more countries to use outer space. And what are you doing in that field, and especially?
So I completely agree that although new opportunities have been unlocked in space, especially over the course of the last decade, I think now more than ever, access to space has been the easiest than it's ever been before. We have unlocked a new potential, but at the same time, we have created a problem that we need to deal with, not down the line, but today, and be able to address that within our national systems and with regional collaborations and global collaborations and international fora to be able to address it. So spot on, we are concerned about the sustainability of space. One, for the assurance of continued access to space, especially for growing nations, and two, for the utilization that we all get from space. The way that we are tackling it is at several levels. One, at a dialogue level, we all speak of different solutions that could gear towards ensuring that space debris is tackled and tackled appropriately. But we all have different thoughts, different ideas, different technologies, different mechanisms to be in place. The only way that we can have a concerted effort to sustain access to space and to sustain the low Earth orbit, which is the most important asset at the moment to ensure equal access to space. We need to ensure that we put the right policies globally and agree on a global system of management of space debris, with assuring that we don't limit access to space, because it's very easy to come and say that we'll limit access to space to certain category of spacecraft. That inhibits innovation. There needs to be a global consensus on how we operate in space, especially in low Earth orbit, what sorts of regulations need to be put into place, and what sorts of technologies are required to deorbit some of the challenges that we have today in space. So that's on a global dialogue perspective, and we are doing that not only at our work in the United Nations, which has a platform to ensure that dialogue continues there, but informing it through different platforms, including last year launching the Abu Dhabi Space Debate, which we will hold the next session of at the end of next year. That is a mechanism to convene globally with the private sector, with military, with security, with foreign affairs, with politicians, with scientists, with researchers, with engineers, and with space agencies to ensure that we are appropriately finding the right solution that can then go to the international forum for discussion. So that's the one level. The second is internally within the UAE, and we look at our legislations, ensuring that we submit and register every single space body. We look at the regulations at a local level and quality assurance measures in the development of spacecrafts. And that's something that we're actively working through our legal framework, the regulation framework of the space sector. And now we're percolating it down through the different programs that we are funding, ensuring that we are positive actors to low Earth orbit and to space exploration, not only adhering to international practice, but also developing our own international practice. And then the third is, while we look at mitigating the challenges that are currently with regards to sustainability of space, we need to ensure that we are all aware globally of space debris that is happening, and space situational awareness then becomes very important. And again, space situational awareness, not only for a few select nations that have the technology for space situational awareness, but for everyone and every actor in space to be able to have access to that kind of data, so that we're able to not increase the clutter. Any collision that happens today in space, because of the speed that the debris are moving in, will further cause more space debris in space. So the data aspect and sharing that sort of information becomes also very pertinent and very important. So we're looking at solutions to be able to address that.
Well, thank you very much, Minister, for the very insightful and comprehensive answer, actually. And many of the things you mentioned, the priority to have both mitigation measures, remediation, with an international cooperation and balance, and so actually connects a lot with what the forum has been doing in that field. So Justin, can you give us maybe more?
Yeah, and I guess the UAE is in a unique position to sort of be, I wouldn't say mediator or go-between, but rather a nation that can advocate in favor of the nations that have not yet been able to access space, which the UAE has, and sort of make the case that precisely access to space should never be restricted. But in order for that access not to be restricted, we need to put effective measures in place, whether remediation or simply measures to prevent the problem in the first place. One of the things we have advocated for was deorbitation under 5 years rather than 25, which has been adopted by various nations and should be adopted by all. But for us, the north-south dimension of the net zero space initiative led by the forum was really very, very important.
Thank you very much, Justin, for that. So as we still have time, I'm going to give you one last question, Mr. Al Amiri. Outer space may be far, but its applications are actually quite daily on Earth. So I was wondering, how is the UAE mobilizing space technologies and capacities to support its economic development, other priorities such as increasing connectivities, STM identification, and also fighting climate change?
So we've been focusing quite a lot over the course of the last 2 years, not only on focusing on spacecraft development, which has been what we've doubled down on for such a long time, but focusing on the applications that come to space that now impact other sectors now more than ever, because today you have access to ample data from space, and you don't really need to have a satellite in space to be able to access any forms of Earth observation data, be it for the SDGs or be it for the utilization in urban development, in better farming practices, in monitoring climate change in a localized area and being able to expand there. So we've invested quite heavily on applications to be able to demonstrate mechanisms by which you can use it. And since we are very passionate about climate change and ensuring that we're informed, and we do feel the effects as a country of climate change, we have actively invested in companies and also funded companies within the UAE and also internationally to be able to develop the right tools and the right programs in place. And lastly, we've created a platform. So we have a data analytics platform that's available to the UAE's private sector that has some publicly available space Earth observation data, and also has privately available Earth observation data. We fund, this platform is used by different companies. We put on algorithms that companies can utilize to be able to become better informed of the situations that are there. And in COP28, we will announce a loss and damage program that we've signed together with Planet to be able to find the impact of loss and damage in terms of climate change on one region on Earth. And those algorithms, again, can be used to monitor across different countries. So not only are we empowering our own space sector locally to be able to start activating the potential of space services to the wider sectors, we are also working quite actively on an international level to feed into the SDGs, to feed into disaster relief, and also provide the necessary platforms to be able to use it for climate change and appropriately be able to drive the agenda there.
Thank you very much, Minister, for this. As we're running out of time, I might just turn back to Justin for a few words of conclusion, maybe to end this.
Thank you, Jérôme. No, that was a very interesting discussion, and I'm really looking forward to the different sessions in the forum when we have the different actors of space, including the UAE, and continuing on the good work for better governance of that sector.